Today on Ag News Daily.
The USDA chief economist did a study of pork prices in California since Prop 12 went into effect, and they've gone up 20%. Also, the availability has gone down 20%. So definitely a message we want to get out that excess regulations can lead to increased prices.
Well, welcome back to the weekly edition of the Ag News Daily Show. Why do I always have to say that?
I don't know. You just naturally do.
It's because you don't start talking.
I'm letting you lead, Tanner.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. This is our Christmas edition.
It is.
Ag News Daily.
I see you wore your very festive green shirt.
Crap for wearing a hoodie last night.
That's true.
So this is green. It's layered out because it's cold.
And this is our last show of the year.
Oh, yikes. Well, hopefully you're gearing up for the holidays. We did see some systems move through the Midwest. They brought a little heavier snow, especially in the northern areas late this week. The snow and briefly colder air will stay throughout the weekend. Next week, temperatures are forecasted to rise above normal levels as the year comes to a close. This warming trend, combined with the increased precipitation in some areas, could lead to some more drought relief. I know we talk about that quite a bit here in the Midwest, although leading to some fields dealing with muddy conditions. Recent rainfall across Mississippi and Ohio valleys are already boosting the water levels in the Mississippi River, temporarily easing transportation restrictions along the lower Mississippi. With more rain in the forecast, water levels will likely remain elevated for an extended period. Looking ahead at the 6 to 10 day outlook, it is suggesting those warmer than normal temperatures like we talked about nationwide, except for areas along the Atlantic coast, which may see near or below level reads. Precipitation is expected to be near or above normal across much of the country, with the expectation of drier conditions in the desert Southwest region, stretching from southern Appalachians into the Northeast. I know I was giving a couple listeners a hard time in North Dakota yesterday that it blew here 40 mile an hour out of the Northwest, that they needed to shut their back door and keep it.
Well, at least it'll be a little warmer. Probably not a winter wonderland Christmas for a lot of our listeners.
It doesn't sound like it, no.
Well, the government shutdown looms today as Congress has failed to so far pass any continuing resolutions for government funding. On Wednesday, President Trump said he was totally against the continuing resolution that was currently in the House. The CR is a way to avoid government shutdown at year-end when a bigger budget has not yet been passed. Part of that original 1,500-page bill included $10 billion in financial aid for farmers. The plan was aimed to offset declining commodity prices and rising production costs with a one-year extension of the 2018 Farm Bill, authorization of year-round sales for E-15, and nearly $21 billion in disaster relief funding. With the current funding of the government set to expire today, Friday, December 20th, lawmakers are racing against the clock to try and finalize that continuing resolution. The stopgap bill would keep the government running until March 14th. However, we don't have it yet an answer. A statement from President-elect Donald Trump said, quote, "Republicans want to support our farmers, pay for disaster relief, and set up our country for success in 2025. He goes on to continue that, quote, "The only way to do that is with a temporary funding bill without Democrats giving away, combined with an increase in the debt ceiling." The House failed to pass yet again another pared-down version of that 1,500-page bill on Thursday. As of Friday morning, when we are recording the podcast, there is not a clear take on if a continuing resolution will pass at all, and if it is not resolved, the government will go into a partial shutdown Friday evening, foregoing many paychecks for state and federal workers ahead of the holiday season. Of course, a lot of programs will shut down until probably after the new year, Tanner.
I saw a post on X from listener Kale Carlson that asked if there's ever been a 2-page bill.
I doubt it.
Everything seems to be stretched out to the max. We also saw the National Pork Producers Council express their disappointment in Congress and expected a speculative decision to be extended of the 2018 Farm Bill for another year rather than producing a new one. Earlier this week, the bill from congressional leadership announced no new programs or funding will be included in the extension. The NPPC also criticized in a press release sent this week the lack of progress on federal solutions to California's Proposition 12. The law that we all know regulates livestock housing standards. The organization says the inaction leaves pork producers without much needed clarity and support as they navigate increased regulatory and economic pressures. We'll hear what NPPC's president, Lori Stevermer, says about their priorities, why this is such a challenge for them after this message.
Calving season is a favorite time of year, but along with that special time are dangers, extra stress, and increased labor. Safety Zone calf catchers are all about safety and making processing new calves easier. Designed for ATVs or UTVs, one person can do the job and never be threatened by the protective mother cow. Make this and every calving season safer and easier with a Safety Zone calf catcher. Watch videos and customer testimonials or order yours today at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914. Affordable and made in the USA. Make your upcoming and all future calving seasons safer, easier, and stress-free. Durable and designed to work anywhere you can drive your ATV or UTV. Order online at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914 today.
Talking everything policy, we are here with the National Pork Producers Council President, Lori. Lori, thanks for joining us. Give me a little background of who is Lori?
Who is Lori? Well, Lori grew up on a farm. I'm from southern Minnesota, pig farm, went to college at the University of Minnesota, graduated with an animal science degree, took a job in sales, and lo and behold, met this really nice pig farmer, my husband Dale. So I married him, and now we're on his family's farm. So we raise pigs, we have corn and soybeans. I also have an off-farm job with Alltech as a feed sales and marketing individual.
Well, Lori, give me an overview right now about some of the policy you're looking at a national level.
Sure. Well, it's going to be interesting as we go these next few months ahead, but certainly this last year, some of our key issues have been the Farm Bill and getting that passed. For a couple of reasons. One, there's funding for our animal health lab networks, funding for veterinary stockpile, and all those things are really important as we look at biosecurity. The other important issue that's part of the Farm Bill is just a federal solution to California's Prop 12. So for those of you people that aren't familiar with Prop 12, that's California basically telling the rest of the states how to house sows if they want to sell pork within California. The biggest concern with that is, for our farmers, is just the fear of a patchwork of regulations. So if California has regulations, Massachusetts has regulations, now all of a sudden we as farmers are trying to adhere to that patchwork of regulations, and that doesn't work well for our industry, and that uncertainty is really hard for us to make business decisions on.
So how's that framed in the Farm Bill?
So it's framed in the House version of the Farm Bill. There's a federal preemption in there which would preempt pork, dairy, and poultry from these rules. So California could continue to regulate housing in their own state, but they could not regulate housing practices in other states. The Senate version doesn't have a Farm Bill, or Senate version does not have that language in it yet. Senator Bozeman had it in his framework, but we're waiting for the Senate to come together.
And so what is that a rule? Is there some funding behind it that you're looking for?
You know, we've handled that funding basically just as an organization. That's part of the membership of our producers, is that we work on issues like that. So I've worked hard, with some advertising and some media to make legislators aware of the issue and how it affects us. I think one thing that's important to note, the USDA chief economist did a study of pork prices in California since Prop 12 went into effect, and they've gone up 20%. Also, the availability has gone down 20%. So definitely a message we want to get out, that excess regulations can lead to increased prices.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, in the Farm Bill, of what's your proposition in the House, is there some kind of funding or something, or is it just the rule change?
It would just be the rule change. We're not asking for any funding on Prop 12. We're just asking for the rule change.
Okay, interesting. So that's happening in California. Is there any ballot initiatives you looked at really this election season?
There are a couple other states where there's been some ballot initiatives that we've been involved with. In Denver, there was a slaughterhouse ballot initiative that would ban slaughterhouses within the city of Denver. There really only is one, and it's a lamb slaughterhouse, and it's employee-owned, and it was good to see that the community really got behind that and defeated that ban. The other place where there was an initiative was in California, in Sonoma County. They wanted to ban CAFOs, or large units. And once again, the community really came together and said that we need large farms. And so that ban was defeated so that those farms will be able to continue to be in existence. So definitely seeing more pressure in states that have the ballot initiatives as the activists work against us in those areas.
Are there some other future states, as now the election season here now is over, is there something looking forward come spring that you're paying attention to?
Well, I would say, we'll work closely with our states as their legislative bodies go into session probably in January. So not every state has a ballot referendum process, but that's part of the additional funding we got from NPPC a couple of years ago from our members was to work in these type of areas. So Drew Beardsley is the member on our staff that works with the states. And so that's part of that partnership between NPPC and our state organization.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the outlook for pork come 2025, what are you looking at?
Well, we've had some profitability in our industry over the last half of 2024. We hope that continues in 2025. Pork prices look good. Grain prices are lower. That helps add to that profitability. And so we hope that continues. I would say along those same lines, exports have been good for us. About 26% of our pork products are exported. So we want to continue to see those export markets going and also develop new export markets.
Do you have more caution or maybe more optimism with this new administration come January?
I would say probably a bit of both, right? There's been discussion about tariffs and putting tariffs on. We know that typically when tariffs get put on other countries, we in agriculture face the retaliatory tariffs. And so that's why it's really important for us as an organization to communicate with the new administration to let them know how important exports are to our business and hopefully, eliminate those or minimize those disruptions.
So what will these next few months look like come exports? Will there be some lower buying, higher buying?
I would say, continue conversations with our staff, with those other countries. I'm sure they're looking too at us in the elections and wondering what's going to happen. But that's an important part of having those relationships and continuing to build them. Mexico is a good trading partner with us. 40% of our hams go there. They're their number one export market. I know that Maria Ziba from our staff continues to talk to their staff. And I think that's the importance of having relationships and what we do on not just a national but an international level.
What are some other export market possibilities that you guys are looking into?
Well, we continue to look at opportunities in Central America. Colombia has been a good market for us. We've had good growth in Australia, also back in the Dominican Republic because of some of the challenges they've had with African swine fever. Maybe a little bit more long-term market that we want to develop is South America. And so, hopeful that we can continue to have those conversations with those countries, that there won't be the barriers put in place, and that we can open up those markets and then allow them to grow.
Is there any other topics that you think are really pertinent to pork producers, especially when we're talking policy and the work that you're doing at NPPC?
I would say a couple different things that are important to our members. First of all is just labor. And all of agriculture is having challenges with labor. And we use a lot of TN visa labor on our farms. They're skilled workers. They work in our sow farms for breeding and that. And there's been an increase in the number of denials of TN visas over the last year, and that puts pressure on our farms. We're in rural areas. We don't have a big labor pool to begin with, so a lot of discussion there. I know that H-2A visas often get mentioned, and those are seasonal visas, so they work well for crops and for vegetables. We talk about H-2A visa reform, so allowing those visas to be reformed so that those workers can stay year-round. So really key issues for us. I would say just overall, hoping that pork demand is good. And I think going along with that is just, continuing to encourage our producers to keep showing up, continuing to advocate and talk about what they do on their farms. If we don't tell our story, somebody else will.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. If there is one thing that you want other farmers to know of how fun it has been in your role in NPPC, can you just touch upon that?
Yeah, people ask about fun, and we just got done talking about all the challenges in the industry, and then you say, well, how can that be fun? But, I feel really blessed to be able to meet so many different people in the industry and outside of the industry also, and to learn more about them. And I think especially for our farmers to be able to be their voice at some of those national and international events. So very honored to be able to represent our pork farmers. That's been the fun part of it. I would say also it's fun to get to know the different farmers and to see them advocating on their behalf. It's been a great experience. I will say one thing I'm really excited about is a new program that NPPC has called the Young Pork Advocates Program. So this is for individuals from 18 to 22 years of age. It's kind of a limited membership into NPPC, but allows them to see what we do in policy work. And I'm so excited about the next generation. They have so many great ideas. There's so much potential. And to allow them to get a little bit of a glimpse in our industry and the opportunities available and the role they can play, I think is just great for our future.
Well, thank you so much, Lori, and for explaining that. We appreciate your time and for spending it with us.
Thank you.
Well, again, a big thank you there to Lori. In some other news this week, Tanner, the USDA has reversed its earlier suggestion that cattle imports from Mexico could resume before the year-end holidays. Imports were suspended back in November after they discovered the new World Screwworm, a flesh-eating pest in Mexico. Dr. Rosemary Seifert, the USDA's chief veterinary officer, now says imports will likely resume incrementally after the new year, with full operations expected to restart in early 2025. This shift comes despite earlier comments from USDA Undersecretary Jenny Lester-Moffitt, who indicated imports might resume in late December. To combat the threat of screwworm, the USDA has approved a second round of emergency funding, drawing from portions of the Commodity Credit Corporation. Moffitt confirmed the agency is also directing resources to fight the pest in Mexico and Central America. Last year, the USDA allocated $109 million toward this effort. The new world screwworm poses a significant risk to livestock, and the USDA says it's prioritizing measures to prevent that pest from entering into the United States. Tanner, I see you've lowered your chair during the middle of our...
Really hoped you had a shorter story and that would distract you more, but it really didn't. And screw the screwworm. Did I say that on Agnews Daily?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Well, we've also seen other farmers and ranchers that saw a significant increase in their tax bills. If the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is not renewed before it expires at the end of next year. A USDA Economic Research Services study examined the impact of expiring provisions from the tax law and the pandemic-era American Rescue Plan. ERS economist Tia McDonald said farm households could face an average tax increase of $2,200 or 12% if these provisions are not extended. The potential tax hike includes changes to lower tax rates, the state and local tax cap, the expanded standard deduction, and personal exemptions. The expiration of qualified business income deductions is expected to have the second largest impact. Other expiring provisions include the child tax credit, the estate tax exemption, bonus depreciation, and alternative minimum tax. Farm groups are urging lawmakers to act quickly, warning that the added financial burden could strain producers already dealing with tight margins and economic pressures. We just had an episode on Farm for Profit around some of these same topics as far as tax planning and things that could happen in 25.
Well, it seems like a long way away, but as we know, things don't move quickly in Congress.
That's correct. At least we hope that things move faster than what has happened with the Farm Bill.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're continuing to monitor what's happening related to avian influenza impacting producers across the country. More raw milk in California is being recalled. The second recall milk has seen now in California in 2 weeks. The second one came 100 miles from the first, from a Central Valley dairy farm. Likewise, the USDA reports that the H5N1 virus was recently found in a backyard poultry flock in Louisiana, making it the 50th outbreak we've seen. Since February of 2022, nearly 124 million birds have died from H5N1, either directly from the virus or through culling efforts to prevent its spread. A patient has been hospitalized with a severe case of avian influenza A in Louisiana as well. This marks the first instance of a severe illness linked to the virus in the United States. Since April 2024, there have just been 61 reported human cases of H5 bird flu reported in the United States. While an investigation into the source of the infection in Louisiana is ongoing, it is determined that the patient had exposure to sick and dead birds in a backyard flock. This is the first case of H5N1 bird flu in the U.S. that has been linked to exposure of a backyard flock, but USDA is continuing to mostly say that the food system is safe, and these are some one-off cases.
I think I saw a headline, and I hate doing this off of memory, squirrels with coronavirus. So we'll see if that comes to fruition even more.
Well, the relationship between agriculture and the environment is often a topic of discussion, frequently paired with ag policy conversations. We recently heard a panel discussion about environmental issues in agriculture in November at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting's annual convention. Rob Snyder, former EPA senior advisor, says leading up to the election this fall, there was some understanding of how the next 4 years will go in relation to the president's impact on policy because of both administrations having 4-year terms.
We saw the way the prior Trump administration operated with respect to a whole range of policy issues. That includes environmental regulation. President-elect Trump is clearly committing to try to streamline a number of regulatory frameworks, reduce regulation. That's been a commitment. I think the question is, what does that look like in practice? And I think there may be some areas where it's easier to do that than others. And when I reflect on my time at EPA, one of the things that often drove decision-making was actually court decisions. So there are a number of issues that are actually being driven by judicial cases that are playing out outside of both the legislative and executive branches of government.
Mary Kay Thatcher with Syngenta points out there will most likely be a cut in some regulations, especially heard on the campaign trail. Although she does question what was the talk when campaigning and what will actually happen when the new administration begins in January. Let's hear from her now.
But somewhere he said, no, I'm going to take away 10 regs for every new one put in place. So certainly I think there'll be a trend, but I think we have to be careful. I'm with Rod. You know, you look at Endangered Species Act, everybody knows we have to fix that, because if we don't fix it, we're going to lose pesticides that are very important to farmers. It's how it's done. So will there be changes in some of the things that this administration did on endangered species? I strongly suspect yes. But does it get thrown out the window? No.
Well, of course, another big topic of discussion is WOTUS, or Waters of the U.S. This was another issue that the conversation brought forward, and what the ag organization priorities are going to be related to water moving forward.
If we look back to the first Trump administration, they came in and, presented a rulemaking to withdraw the Obama administration's definition of WOTUS. And then they worked to supply their own definition through a formal rulemaking. That was certainly took a lot of time, most of the 4 years. I can say that our members do need relief immediately. We have a lot. I run a coalition of 45 trade organizations. I hear from many different industry sectors, and we need clarification of very important linchpin terms within the WOTUS definition.
I think the regulatory text of the 2023 rule is good objectively, but there are some vague terms that need to be defined so that staff out in the field don't have the implementation enforcement discretion that they currently have. So those, I think, for NCBA at least, that will be our priorities, is kind of getting together guidance documents that will further define the terms that are already in the new regulatory text, and then hopefully working with USDA to also get some collaborative guidance.
And I would add not only clarity for staff, but even for farmers. Just as we are working our fields and making our decisions on our crops and our management of our land, I mean, having that understanding of what WOTUS is and what it isn't is very key to us.
EPA's impact on agriculture is big, and when asked to Mary Kay Thatcher what keeps her up at night, it's cutting EPA funding.
I mean, I might personally be willing to cut a lot of different funding, but when I look at like the Office of Pesticide Programs that's not able to approve pesticides in a timely manner because we can't get the appropriations money out of the Congress to get them to do that, it's taking longer and longer and millions more dollars for companies like mine to register products, to re-register them, et cetera. And so I'm really worried now when you get all this verbiage in the last few days about cutting funding at EPA and moving them out of Washington, et cetera. You know, if we lose more people in, for example, that Office of Pesticide Programs, we and farmers are in a world of hurt. So, and we already have trouble, as you can well imagine, going to the Hill and saying, hey, don't cut OPP. If you want to go cut the rest of EPA, go do it. But OPP is different. We already don't make near as much progress in that as we'd like. And now I fear it's going to be an even harder sell.
Well, Tanner, those were many of the topics providing more of an in-depth look between what's happening in agriculture and the environment. I know we continue to bring some great NAFB coverage here in the next few weeks coming up, but let's take a look at what's going on in the fertilizer markets this week.
Well, we're closely monitoring the fertilizer markets, especially thanks to Josh Linville of StoneX with his insights. We'll share some of those with you here. Linville reported that the export restrictions on nitrogen fertilizers from China are expected to remain in place with no significant signs of easing. Chinese urea exports are particularly limited, with only 257,000 tons exported through October this year. That's compared to 5.3 million tons in 2021. Here in North America, fertilizer demand is picking up. At farm date, as year-end spending ramps up, UAN values are heating up due to the increased demand. Bullish urea markets, tariff concerns, and other production issues are also contributing to that. For the phosphates, exports of DAP and MAP from China also remain below normal. Meanwhile, India continues to dominate as our largest buyer. The factors highlighting the ongoing shifts and pressures in the global fertilizer market are certainly going to continue to expand. So those factors are continually putting some pressure on what our farmers are doing with.
Absolutely. As we turn our attention to some other market updates, the Federal Reserve this week made their third and final interest rate cut just a quarter basis point. Following the news, stocks had one of their worst day in months. The Reserve also indicated they were planning for 2 less reductions next year, now expecting to see just 2 in total in 2025, citing sideways movement in the economy for the last 12 months. Meanwhile, in Russia, as of early Friday morning, they made a surprising move and did not increase their central bank interest rates higher this week. Currently sitting at 21%, they are focused on squashing inflation. Russian business tycoons pushed back, saying this was really putting the brakes on their economy in general. Russia, which is targeting a 4.5% to 9% interest rate, said they will look at their next meeting to decide about adjusting interest rates once again, but are expecting to see inflation drop to their 2025 targets next year, 4.5% to 9%, but currently at 21%, so it's going to be a tough road to hoe. Here in about 6 weeks, we'll start to see Brazilian soybeans come online. Meanwhile, export sales have been extremely strong this year, 100,000 bushels ahead of their usual seasonal pace for this marketing year. Corn export sales are also well ahead of their seasonal pace, some 320,000 bushels. 320 million bushels. The question will become what kind of crop we see online from our Latin counterparts later this year. Exchange rates and market prices are currently making grain from South America much cheaper than they are here in the United States. And
you could have totally had Ron Burgundy moment.
You know, writing the script at 6 this morning.
Crop on the...
Yes, I know. It did.
You should have said what it said, Delaney.
We're good. This was our final show of the year. I think everybody's feeling that end of year pinch. I know markets are going to be a little slower, so we head into...
Being squirrely here.
Yeah.
Chair, I should say sorry. But, and I don't typically do this much cross-promotion to other podcasts, but Farm for Profit just yesterday on 19th, did air an episode with a Brazilian connection to the agriculture market there. So it's great insight and perspective. Overarchingly, they look up to us. We're like a coach. We're like the example or an idol that they want to emulate. And here we are reporting bad news as potential influx in the market and taking share from us.
Absolutely.
So it's a teach the teacher type of situation. But listeners, we appreciate you spending all of 2024 with us. We look forward to what 2025 will bring. All these opportunities are thanks to you, and we owe that very graciously to you.
Absolutely. Well, this is our last show of the year. We're excited to be back just after the new year with some fresh news, hopefully some sort of government funding update, maybe some Christmas recaps. But if you're missing us between now and then, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or X, I should say, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Tanner?
You got to check out TikTok before it goes away.
Well, that's true.
Weeks left of that. So go out and enjoy it there while the times last.
Well, Merry Christmas to all of our listeners. Tanner, what do you say we let them go?
Let's let them go.